track the operationalization of the ICT center that was launched in 2022 to tap into the tech-savvy minds within the region. This follows numerous reports of fraudulent SIM-swapping activities that are said to be spearheaded within Bomet.
Silicon Savannah ya Kenya na East Africa kwa jumla, and I think even Africa, where you will find IT wizards ni katika hii Bomet County. Wanapatikana mahali naitwa Mulot hapa na generally hata kwa hii Bomet Town. Ni vile tu kwa bahati mbaya, sababu uchumi ni mbaya, wanafanya mambo ingine ambayo sio mzuri zaidi. In the budget, please allocate them 1 billion Kenya shillings.
Mambo ya ICT tunatafuta shamba, tumeanza kuongea na watu wetu watupatie at least a minimum of 50 acres ya hiyo ICT software factory.
Tuko na watu wenye akili mingi hapa wanatumika vibaya. Wale watu wa Mulot pale kwa kona. Sasa tunataka kutengeneza hapa factory. Badala ya kufanya mambo hiyo, wakuja wafanye mambo mzuri. Hiyo ardhi bwana governor tumekuambia utafute.
On his part, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua expressed his unwavering determination to deal with so-called cartels and brokers in the tea, coffee and milk sector.
Tunataka kuambia nyinyi mnaandika makolam. Ati mnatuambia tutapata shida pale mbele. Sasa ile shida tunaweza pata pale mbele si ni kidogo kuliko ile tumekuwa naye. Sisi tumekuwa na shida kubwa. Tena hata tukipata shida yenu ni gani? Na mlikuwa mnasema hatufai. Don't advise us on how to lead. Kuna watu wengine wanaendesha propaganda ati nimempatia hiyo kazi, ati ndio yeye, ati ni mtego, ati ndio yeye aanguke. Kwani huyu deputy president akianguka mimi nitakuwa nasimama? Si huyu akianguka hata mimi nimeanguka?
The pastors, let me request.
Ruto also called on farmers to register with the administration officials in the ongoing registration process to be able to benefit with government programs that will target the registered farmers. Ruth Sarmoi, NTV in the county of Bomet.
Staying with politics, suspended KANU Secretary General Nick Salat has ditched the Azimio One Kenya Coalition Party and joined hands with President William Ruto's Kenya Kwanza Alliance. Speaking in Bomet during a Thanksgiving ceremony graced by President Ruto and a host of other leaders, the embattled Nick Salat likened himself to the biblical prodigal son, adding that he had suffered enough and it was time to go back home. Salat's move now throws into disarray the disciplinary proceedings by KANU. So now he's ndani of Kenya Kwanza. NTV's Sydney Chazima reports.
It was perhaps Nick Salat's majestic walk to join hands with the political formation that he now calls home that stole the show during the Thanksgiving prayers at the Bomet Green Stadium.
Bishop,
Salat, who has been KANU's Secretary General for close to 15 years, also committed to throw his weight around President Ruto's 2027 bid, consequentially downcasting KANU Chairman Gideon Moi, who also harbors presidential ambitions.
Your Excellency, Iman ngalale no ngagimwage lein. Kwa ya ninne ngalegu. Agwan chumba chu ni ame ni mbata mange mitwa. Amunang na lea metaman. Yele lego iwendote koni miman yun gigawe age tachin. Taga nongo gitachin. Ilange tunde no mitimi.
Kenya Kwanza's top leadership present at the stadium lauded Salat's move.
You are a good man and you have lost a good 15 years. I beseech you and I pray that this time stick with your brother, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, and Kenya shall be better.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua did not shy away from criticizing Gideon Moi's stewardship of the KANU party.
Na amepoteza vile Musalia amesema miaka 15. Akifuata ile mtu ya kucheza mpira akiwa juu ya farasi. Hiyo mtu baada ya kutumia yeye vibaya amekupotezea miaka 15 amekufukuza. lakini hapa kwa boma ya William Ruto nyumba ya baba ni kubwa.
Salat's move now leaves KANU in limbo as it comes days to disciplinary proceedings that were set to be initiated against him 30 days after he was suspended over alleged misconduct and violation of KANU's constitution. The decision was arrived at by KANU's National Executive Council and acted upon by party chair Gideon Moi. Salat had rubbished Gideon Moi's move, terming it null and void, adding that the former Baringo senator had no such powers. This move appears to be plucking the shine from Gideon Moi's influence in the vote-rich Rift Valley region. But for Salat, it is a hope that his latest roll of the dice will be a winning one. Sydney Chazima, NTV.
Well, Charles Muñoz is already in studio. He's a governance consultant. Charles, I'm very curious to hear whether Salat's move comes as a surprise, because he spoke about Nyanza, and we're talking about Nyanza this morning, and he said, so why should he be left behind? Well, all that and more coming up. In under 48 hours, the term of office of Chairperson Wafula Chabukati and his team of commissioners lapses, leaving the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission without commissioners, with Irene Merced standing suspended and battling for her professional life before a tribunal constituted to look into her conduct in the course of the 2022 general election. Chabukati took oath of office late 2016, taking up official duties in January of 2017. And as NTV's Leila Mohammed reports, it's the end of an era for a commission that has been lauded and vilified in equal measure. So heroes or villains? Leila Mohammed takes a look.
Commissioning of the IEBC warehouse in Kakamega town Saturday is one of the last official assignments for Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Chairperson Wafula Chabukati and two other commissioners, Professor Abdi Guliye and Boya Molo.
The Orengo tried to report, which outlines the challenges that were there with the outgoing commissioners.
The three commissioners' tenure of office is coming to a close after doing a 6-year term that has been described as having had an equal number of highs and low moments.
The president may give him accolades, and that's understandable because he's the man who declared Ruto president. The thing was taken to the Supreme Court. The things that played out in the Supreme Court, that we leave to Kenyans to judge.
Upon the chairman,
Wafula Wanyonyi Chabukati's tenure at the helm of IEBC as its second chairperson under the 2010 Constitution began in January 2017 when he succeeded Ahmed Isaac Hassan's team that had served first as the Interim Independent Electoral Commission IEBC before taking on the responsibilities of setting up new boundaries and creation of new constituencies.
We don't want every election year it's like we are starting all over again. We want to set up the institution, and I believe I'm the right person for that job.
The promise would soon be tested 7 months into his tenure in office after the Supreme Court annulled the 2017 presidential election.
Presidential election held on 8th August 2017 was not conducted in accordance with the Constitution.
That statement took the country into a political tailspin where an unhappy incumbent coined the infamous "we shall revisit" statement. The judiciary questioned how the Chabukati team undertook that election.
The famous story in Kenya is Fungua Sava, what happened to Sava.
And an opposition that boycotted the second round in totality whilst calling for the resignation of the commission.
How are we going to go to that election with them?
The things that were cited by the petitioner Raila Odinga in Raila too, those things have not been, really not much has been done about them.
It was during the Chabukati-led IEBC's tenure that the question of voter apathy then arose, especially after a hotly contested 2017 election in which a repeat poll was ordered by the courts.
How many eligible voters were registered? There's a question mark there. When last time we were expecting 6 million, we got barely 2.5 million.
The question of trust for the IEBC to conduct free and fair elections in the country has come to the fore in various occasions, including during the Wafula Chabukati-led team, when many in the political class conducted tear gas Mondays every week in a protest against their leadership to conduct any election. The move by the Orange Democratic Movement and its leader Raila Odinga had begun towards the end of the Isaac Hassan Commission's term in office, where demonstrations were sought to be the best option to bring reforms in the electoral body. Following what he termed as a secrecy shrouding the two elections in 2017,
Protect and defend the Constitution of...
Following what he termed as a secrecy shrouding the two elections in 2017, Odinga declared himself the people's president at a park to Uhuru Park in January 31st, 2018, a move that heightened political tension in the country, culminating in the famous handshake at the steps of Harambee House, a political cooperation deal between President Uhuru Kenyatta and the ODM leader Raila Odinga. As the team gets set to leave office, legal minds note that the best way to replace the commissioners is to go back into history in order to ensure that all political parties' interests and concerns are catered to.
The IEBC and its predecessor Electoral Commission, they have always had the question or the challenge of how do you ensure that you appoint commissioners in a way that is fair and balanced, that the ruling party of the day or the majority party of the day does not dominate the process of appointment. And I think it is the IPPG consensus that was the best solution ever implemented.
Chabukati's term witnessed a rearrangement of commissioners immediately after the two presidential elections in 2017 and 2022. Weeks after the 2017 election was annulled,
Kwamboka Roslyn Akombe.
Commissioner Roslyn Akombe fled the country, saying she feared for her life. Months later, the vice chairperson, Consolata Maina, and two other commissioners also resigned from the commission.
Under his leadership, the commission boardroom has become a venue for peddling money, misinformation, grounds for brewing mistrust.
Supposed to be working here, and this has to be made very, very clear to the country that there's no place for former commissioners in the IEBC.
The decision to send packing the then IEBC CEO, Ezra Chiloba, in 2019 was the proverbial stroke that broke the camel's back.
I've made several attempts to make critical changes, but all my motions have been defeated by a majority of the commission.
5 years later, another deadlock rocked the electoral body, splitting it right down the middle. The counting and announcing of votes saw the vice chairperson, Juliana Chorera, and two other commissioners distance themselves from the chairperson, Gulie and Molu.
We are not at Bomas of Kenya because we cannot take ownership of the results that is going to be announced because of the opaque nature which these results have been handled.
Of the four commissioners under investigation, the vice chairperson and two commissioners, Francis Wanderi and Justice Nyangaya, have since resigned from office.
I think it's a structural problem which has become systemic, and what we need to do in the future is to decide between the chairman and his commission and the CEO and his secretariat who should be doing the day-to-day working of the commission.
Our system is not a system that is dependent on the network.
In the two major elections that the Chabukati team has managed, the commission staff have died under unclear circumstances. The death of IT manager Chris Msando in 2017 left an indelible mark in Kenya's electoral history.
Working with the police and the family to ensure that the killers of Chris Msando must be brought to book.
Wafula Chabukati made a revelation that he and his team faced intimidation to steer the results in favor of one candidate in the 2022 general election.
One Wafula Chabukati is our hero. Soft-spoken,
I will faithfully and fully.
It is the end of an era. Focus now shifts on the process of constituting the next IEBC to manage, among other things, the 2027 general election and carry out boundary delimitation before then. Leila Mohammed, NTV.
All right, time now to take a look at what is making headlines on the dailies. Let's start with the Daily Nation. I have two other panelists who've come into studio. So as they get mic'd, let's take a look at what we have on the front pages. But first, here is today's poster. Msingoje serikali ingine. Has Nyanza made peace with Ruto presidency? And what does Chabukati exit mean for Raila? With me in studio, I have Haman Manyora, political analyst, Dr. Sam Mbutu, who is a lecturer at Department of Political Science and Public Administration. You may have spied his name in the Sunday Nations. I believe for several weeks now I've been reading quotes attributed to him analyzing the political situation in the country. James Mamboleo should not be too far behind. And I did mention that we already have Charles Munui, a governance consultant, in studio. All right, let's take a look at the front page of the Daily Nation. There we go. I was revealing my WhatsApp messages. The murder plot. Police are investigating claims that Nelson Ndereba Njeru hired gang to kill wife. It's a bizarre tale, the Daily Nation tells us, when Lucy Njeri Muhami landed at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in Nairobi last November. She did not know that two men ostensibly assigned by her husband to meet and drive her home were in fact members of a killer squad that had been paid 1.5 million shillings to eliminate her, until one of them jumped into the back seat and started strangling her. So for more on this story, do get your copy of the Daily Nation. It covers 2 pages. Pages 2 to 3, 1.3 million shillings, the amount of money Miss Muhami reportedly paid. Is it Ms. Muhami or Mr.? Let me get my copy of my hard copy of the paper. Yes, 1.3 million shillings is the total amount of money Ms. Muhami reportedly paid a gang to spare her life. Ms. Muhami and Mr. Njeru are athletes with dozens of middle and long distance races under their belts, in careers spanning over 2 decades for the man and 1 decade for the woman. In the course of their careers, they have amassed property bought with the prize money. They got married traditionally in 2002. At the time, Njeri was 2 years into her running career with speciality in middle distance races, both locally and abroad. Shocking report there. You can find it on the front page of the Daily Nation. What else is on the front page? From school fees to taxes, you'll have to dig deeper into your pocket. That is on page 7 of the Daily Nation. From one placement results to be known today. There must be parents and pupils across the board waiting with bated breath. And Raila out to calm troubled waters in Nyanza through mending fences with Ruto. In surprise U-turn last week, Raila rallied leaders in Nyanza to embrace the president. And let's take a look at this quote here of Professor Macharia Monene. It makes Raila look civil and Ruto magnanimous. The backdoor handshake is likely to be realized, with Raila getting a powerful position. I am curious whether my panelists agree with Professor Macharia Monene on that score. Let's take a look at, wait, let me see. There's a strategy that has been revealed here. And the strategy is to forestall defections from his camp, to stem rebellion in his strongholds, to push for development in his strongholds, to solidify his bases, to foster cooperation between opposition and government in the 2 houses, backing progressive government bills in the 2 houses, to counter government attack on opposition, Lord of Poverty branding, to cool down political temperatures, and to reorganize himself. All right, and then this report by Vitalis Kimutai. I'm not setting up my deputy, Ruto says. Head of state condemns Kericho MCAs for leadership wrangles that recently descended into a fist fight. There's a quote here of, President has asked Mr. Gachagua to oversee reforms in the tea and coffee sectors and boost farmers' earnings. There's a quote here of the DP. There will be a lot of noise when the hammer falls on the cartels, and I urge you, Mr. President, not to listen or give refuge to the actors. flipping over from school fees to taxes and costly loans. Hard times await higher secondary school fees at the cost of living burden that parents will be shouldering this year. When schools reopen for the first time on Monday next week, parents will be forced to dig deeper into their pockets to pay school fees for their children in secondary schools after the government reinstated pre-COVID-19 fees. Ruto taps XMP Tayari to head ports agency for 3 years. That report by Konyango. For more on those appointments, grab your copy of the Daily Nation. Let's take a look at the Taifa Leo front page. Pesa za wazee zageuka mauti. Let me see here. Wawili hao wenye umri wa miaka 90 na 70 waliangamia baada ya kulipwa 8,000 kwa mkupuo wiki jana. Wazee waliosajiliwa katika mpango wa Inua Jamii hupokezwa 2,000 kila mwezi. Hawakuwa wamelipwa pesa hizo kwa zaidi ya miezi minne. So that is the front page of the Taifa Leo. I see here, are these boxing guys? Sungunyo alipua Mkenya. Mwanandondi mwenye makeke wa Tanzania Karim Mandonga Sungunyo pamoja na hasimu wake Mkenya Daniel Wanyonyi wajiandaa kwa pambano kali la maveterani lililochapwa katika ukumbi wa KICC Nairobi Jumamosi. Mandonga aliyezua kibaridi dhidi ya mpinzani wake kabla ya mchapano aliibuka mshindi. Wow, that one gave me a bit of a problem, but yeah, all right. So that's what happened in sports over the weekend. Kimya cha Joho kina mshindo tangu ampokeze Abdul Swamad mikoba haonekani hadharani. Shule msingi juma hii tutafanya nini? Oh, okay, all right. So Joho, his silence resounding. That is what the Taifa Leo states. And then nafasi za kidato cha kwanza kutangazwa waliofanya KCPE kujua shule za sekondari watakazo jiunga nazo leo. All right. I'll leave the Taifa Leo there. Business Daily, costly bank charges and fees, triple home loan repayment. This report by Patrick Alushula. Lenders loading extra 20% before levying interest, appraisals, insurance, and ledger fees hit borrowers. Then I see at the bottom here, windfall as fixed deposit bank return hit 30-month high. On the ticker, EAC to set up regional central bank this year, while Centum terminated CDN Bank sale. Bank Safaricom defy order court on cash transfer fees. Banks and mobile money operators have proceeded to levy fees for transferring cash between their platforms, despite the existence of a temporary High Court order suspending the charges. Okay, that's it for the publications from the Daily Nation, but let's just quickly look at the East African in case you haven't had an opportunity to do so. Uganda Dar es Salaam line clear as Kenya derailed. After close to 8 years of funding drought, Kampala has ditched China for Turkey to build a modern railway. Meanwhile, Kenya grapples with a broken link to Malaba in the race for the East African market. Pages 4 to 5 on the East African. Storm brews over Kagame order on Congo refugees. Rwanda leaders view that Congolese go home if Kinshasa remains hostile, draws mixed reactions. Sudan seeks Ruto help to return to AU. Khartoum wants Kenyan statesman to see it back into the fold to save its economy. And there's a picture there of Sudan's leader. And at the top here, anything I missed? I don't think so. All right, let's take a look at the Star and the Standard now, before we get back into the political stories informing our discussion this morning. So, on the front page of the Standard, matters education. If I could get some water, please. Junior secondary, the great divide. Head teachers are rushing to prepare facilities for the start of a new term, but a visit to schools shows public primary schools have no laboratories for new curriculum and others reporting inadequate number of teachers, while private schools are all set. The major issues: labs, public schools lack the facilities and will have to rely on secondary schools in the neighborhood. Infrastructure: members of parliament are non-committal on whether NGCDF will be used to build labs and other facilities fast enough, as there are other projects that are incomplete. School fees: Ministry of Education has not released fees guidelines for junior secondary, following throwing parents, that is, into confusion. An image here of what? Teacher Dorcas Odonya takes grade 3 pupils at Central Primary School in Kisumu through physical education lessons on January the 9th, 2020. I see up here, we shall kick out cartels and food chains soon. A picture of President William Ruto accompanying that. Kenyans abroad send home 500 billion shillings. And did bookies give Madonga easy victory? And Gachagwa's gaffes put Kingpin quest in jeopardy. That is on page 10. And taking down media, not a smart idea. More on that on page 16. It's an opinion piece of The Standard. The Star: Rachel Hassler Gospel targets 1.2 million women, plans to go big on table banking and environmental conservation. And then Health Ministry on high alert over cholera outbreak, 70 dead. And relief as Red Cross distributes food in Isiolo County. Okay, so, and oh yeah, note, I may not have done the news diary today, but IEBC chiefs are set to launch a poll report as they exit today. So we are keeping an eye on that. Maybe you can just pass me the... Thank you. After all that speaking, my throat is a little bit parched, as you can imagine. Thank you. All right. So allow me to reintroduce, because I know we've gone through a lot of stories, allow me to reintroduce my panelists, and then we get into the conversation. And this morning, a reminder, msingoje serikali ingine. Has Nyanza made peace with Ruto presidency? And what does Chabukati exit mean for Raila Odinga? With me in studio, Haman Manyora, political analyst, Dr. Sambutu, lecturer, Department of Political Science and Public Administration, University of Nairobi. James Mamboleo should be somewhere on his way. Charles Munyui is already in studio with us this morning. Early bird. He is a governance consultant. And Charles, given you are here first, yes, I'll start with the Nick Salat story, because remember when it aired, I told you I'll give you an opportunity to respond. Does his move surprise you? Did you see it coming? What are your thoughts?
I think he's a very lucky guy, and it's interesting. We might never get to know why he had a problem in Canada in the first instance. Because obviously he's not going to be subjected to due process. But like he said, he's home. And I think that's a weighty statement as far as I'm concerned. He's home. He's okay. He's working with the President of the Republic of Kenya. I think it must feel good. Even when he was dunning everyone, he was talking about winning the presidency. So when you have an opportunity post-elections to be received by the president, I think it must be a feel-good thing for him. And I think Kenyans generally must stop taking politicians too seriously. Ultimately, it's about self-aggrandizement. It's about him. So I think he's okay. As far as I'm concerned, he's in a better position as opposed to being in a party that formed a coalition that lost the elections. If it's about yourself, I think that's a better position. And I think all these politicians have a track record, and you can see it. So for him, I feel it's okay. I mean, where he went, how he went there, how he got there, how now he's even getting pole position to speak in a function where people that were backing the party that he's joining, or the coalition that he's joining, have been there consistently. This is how politicians operate to a large extent, and it should not shock anyone. And now he's a hero all of a sudden. So to me, well, these are interesting times, and I think it should be a lesson to Kenyans. Don't take these guys too seriously. They can do anything. They can be anywhere at any one time, depending on how things are working out for them.
Okay. All right, Haman Manyora, what are the, because Charles said we may never get to know what caused his troubles in KANU. Could it be that he was already reaching out to the William Ruto administration? Is it because during the campaign period, we saw Nick Salat make a number of statements that Gideon Moi then had to come back, had to come in and then pull back. So what do you think caused his troubles within KANU? Or is it that he's been in the cold, proverbial cold? Because Mudavadi said it's been 15 years. I had 15 years for the gentleman. It would have been, I believe he said, it would have been, I had 15 years for the gentleman. So is that it?
Well, you know, like he says, politicians are politicians. And they grab every available chance. Yeah, so when you win the presidency, people troop to you, certainly. And he's not the first. He's not going to be the last. Many politicians have already trooped to Ruto, and others are still doing it. Others will do it. But I think from a serious point of view, there has been some kind of difference between Nick Salat and Gideon Moi in terms of the approach to politics. He's a little faster than Gideon. Gideon is restrained, conservative, you know, doing things quietly. I think Salat has always shown that he's not happy with that kind of slowness, if you wish. He would always appear to be wanting to push Gideon into the pool, but the gentleman doesn't want to undress. So, so you remember he's the one who tried to push him into declaring that he's going to run, and actually at some point actually forced him to kind of accept that. And I think the two, it was going to be very difficult when these elections came. Yeah.
All right. Dr. Mbutu, is it that Nick is more a fiery brand type of politician, and so his politics was like his politics and that of Gideon Moi, oil and water?
One thing about politicians is that they pursue personal interests. And what binds politicians are common interests. So in politics, there are no permanent friends, but only permanent interests. And Nick Salat is actually turning this statement to be true. But on a serious note, you know, KANU is not just an ordinary party, it's an independence party. And there might be a number of secrets which Nick Salat may have had an access to, which the country may not know. But in the fullness of time, as my senior Herman usually say, we shall get to know the exact truth. Because at the moment we've just heard that it's time, I need to embrace the president, I need to move on. But also we've not heard from Gideon Moi. So unless we hear from both sides, that's when we shall know where the truth lies.
All right. Yes. And I don't know whether whether we will actually hear from Gideon Moi on the subject, because as you said, Herman, he is a restrained man. So wait to see how that will play out. But what do you make of Joho's silence? Former Mombasa Governor Ali Hassan Joho. Do you find it resounding and telling? More on that on the other side of this break.
My name is Norman Mudipo, former NTV business anchor and also a reporter, currently a communications consultant with App Exporter Novelli. I was among the few who were privileged to attend the Man Cave, which was sponsored and led by Nation Media Group. I think for me it was the first ever, the real first ever men's conference. And I know there's been all this talk around men not talking. But I think for me, that needs to change because men talked. Maybe not everyone, but men talk. And I just want to encourage men to talk because that's how you're going to cope with the stresses, with the challenges of life. The same way like the women do. So I think for me it was an eye-opener, it was a watershed moment, and looking forward to more conversations, more sharing of experiences in February 2023.
All the companies Gabriel is in charge of are facing these issues. It just seems a little too convenient for me.
Well, tell me, is it my fault that Dad entrusted those companies to an incompetent person?
I don't want us getting involved, okay?
Like I said, don't stress out about it.
Why did you do it? Did someone tell you to do it?
No one, no one, no one. No one ordered me to do it. I planned all of it.
Forever, my love.
Want to know the biggest story of the week? Do not worry. The Weekly Review has got you covered for in-depth analysis of politics, business, governance, as well as social issues. The Weekly Review covers it all. For well-researched, exclusive and investigative content, read the Weekly Review every Sunday on Nation e-paper and on www.nation.africa, free of charge.
What I'm about to do, I'm sure nobody expected.
I want to give them an experience that they will never forget. Every performer has 40 hours of rehearsal booked.
With a band?
Yeah.
Mimi niko worried. Siwezi takiko kama ile kitu kama Fire Festival.
Na kuna ngoma mpya zinakam before Soul Fest.
Hii Soul Fest lakini itahitaji faster changeover.
An artist's worst nightmare, you know, it happened.
We're really in the business of selling emotions, it seems.
Hata sikujua kama kulikuwa na kitu kama hiyo ati kuna boy.
Wameanza kutupa mavitu sasa, hii ni scary mazee.
Finally everything is sorted out.
Welcome back to AM Live. And the Taifa Leo had talked about a resounding silence from former Mombasa Governor Ali Hassan Joho. Charles, is the silence resounding to you? Does it speak to you?
I think these are confusing times for you. He was meant to be the Cabinet Secretary for Land, assuming nothing changed in terms of the plans that were there by the Azimio team. Secondly, he has served 10 years in the county and he did not go for any elective position, as it were. So there can be a lot to say at a time like now. Remember, he's also a businessman, and especially in Mombasa. So I think it is easier and better to go silent and realign quietly, especially for the sake of the benefit, the business interest and all that. And I want to believe, again, you cannot just start making noise. What are you going to say? I mean, the team that you are supporting lost. The team that would have, taken you to the next level politically is no longer there. You have all of a sudden have to find traction on a lot of areas. You have your next door neighbor rising to the position of Speaker of the Senate, the person that you've been working with. I think there's a lot of transition going on, politically speaking, in different regions. People were assumed to be kingpins have now found themselves suddenly in positions that they never anticipated in quite a while, and especially considering he's also not an old person. He's reasonably youthful, for lack of a better way of putting it. So I think these are times when you have to go back and relook at how you need to go about this and what you need to become and how you'll go about it, against balancing that with the issues of business and the things that you do. And these are they're definitely going to be interesting times for him and others that especially have served a statutory 2 terms as governor. So it would have made more sense for him to, in terms of political trajectory, if the team that was supporting won. But now I believe it's confusing for him.
All right.
Yeah.
Herman, what do you make of this silence? Is it because when under President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration, at least the first term, you know, we used to see Ali Hassan Joho next to Raila Odinga, and he would tell the government, you know, this is how it is here, this is Mombasa. And we didn't see that the last time Raila Odinga was in Mombasa, though Raila sought to assure that Azimio is intact.
You know, there are lots of speculations about Joho. The first was that together with Junet Mohammed, they had missed the election, and accusations about even money meant for agents, and you know, when elections that people come up with all sorts of stories. And actually, immediately after the results, these two went under. Junet was later to resurface. My theory was, assuming what people are saying had been true, Raila had to bring him back because Junet is so close to the Azimio leader that he must know many secrets, and therefore you can't trust him away from you, assuming that is the case. Remember also, sometimes even before the election, Joe had run in with health. People said he was a bit unwell, he had gone for treatment. You can never know. And like he says, when you've been governor for 10 years, and look at the many of them who finished their second term, they are quiet. You need some break. But this one of Joho, I agree, is rather too
loud.
Too loud. The silence is too loud. Whether Raila wants to tell us all is well or not, we will remain suspicious that indeed there's something going on, and that Joho and Raila and within Azimio, there are issues to be resolved. That's how I'll take it. It's not normal that a guy like Joe can just go under like that, unless he's unwell. And if he's not unwell, it can't just be a normal break.
Okay.
Yeah, Raila can't be at the coast and Joe is a no-show. So there must be something. There are always rumors, but you know, rumors are based on some facts. You know, there must be something true about what went on during the elections. And I think that has kept him away.
All right. Dr. Sam Mbutu, Charles Munyi says Joho is a relatively young man, you know. What avenues in your mind are there available to him to progress his political career? Because this is a gentleman we all imagined was dyed in the wool, you know. He bled, you would imagine he bled orange. He wasn't deputy party leader at a certain point. Yeah, so what do you make of these recent ramblings?
Talking about former Governor Ali Hassan Joho, I find it difficult to understand why he is this quiet ever since Azimio lost elections. But also, I want to look at Joho's silence in the midst of the whole confusion in Azimio. Joho has been a supporter of Raila Odinga for quite some time, and therefore he may be quiet to allow his party leader to give the country direction before he comes in to support his party leader. That could be one way of looking at it. The other way could be, you know, when you've been a sitting governor for 2 terms, maybe there could be a few challenges you encountered with the system, and you know the system never forgets. So maybe it could be part of his strategy. Yeah, you first retreat, assess yourself, and then in case anything comes up, you are good to face it as it comes. But very soon, I know, he will not be quiet forever. He will have to come out, either by default or by design. But he will have to come out and break his silence. So allow him some time to retreat, but he will be back. That is one thing I'm sure about, because once a politician, always a politician. You can't be quiet forever.
All right, and we wait to see what his renaissance will look like. All right, Charles, looking at what transpired over the weekend, President William Ruto was in Nyanza.
Yes.
Were you surprised that they rolled out the red carpet?
Not really. I think if you look at how even Nyanza behaved immediately after elections, it was telling. There was no chaos. In fact, everyone was interviewed was coming out and saying, we want the president to come and tell us about these bottoms up. After all, I don't think they were listening to him when he was on the campaign trail. So they were saying, now that you've won, come and tell us about these bottoms up solutions that you have for us. And that cut across. There was no chaos whatsoever. And I think that is what is guiding even the politicians from that region, and especially the party leader, the Azimio party leader. I am completely not surprised that that happened. I think Kenyans have started showing the way. Kenyans have started leading the way. In the past, it was easier to antagonize this tribe against this tribe, put together several tribes and then form a coalition and then tell them, as long as we are on this side, we'll make sure it's hell for the other side. And I think Kenyans have said no. They've said, however it went, as long as this is the president, we might be unhappy with what happened in terms of the results. You did not win, but we are saying we are moving on very fast. After all, we have our problems to deal with, irrespective of who is president or not. So that is the first thing. I think Kenyans have shown how these things need to be done, and what politicians must do and are doing is join the bandwagon that has been introduced by Kenyans and work with that. I think that's really key. The other aspect is, of course, the leadership in general appreciates the need to work with the president and the presidency in general. And we've seen when you're in good terms, and incidentally, like you've had this talk about that, when you look like you're an opposition zone and then you're treating the presidency well, and relating that way, it is likely you'll find good is coming your way. I think we are still living there, where we believe and assume support comes based on the level of support for the presidency. And I think it excites even the person in power when those people that you thought would fight you day in, day out are working with you. It's almost, it makes you feel good to the extent that you want to also throw surprises here and there in terms of development. But I think critically looking at it, including the likes of the governors there, they know you cannot survive merely on the amount of money that you allocated as a county, for example, through the division of revenue laws. You need conditional and unconditional grants that are provided for in the Constitution in Article 202. And it counts for something when you're working well with the president, the CEO of the country, because that is money, that's an allocation to the national government that he gives to county governments as conditional and unconditional grants, and a lot of other things. So I think, to me, it would be unfortunate, it would have been unfortunate if we had been treated differently, and I think Right Honorable Raila Odinga is alive to such, of course guided by the CEOs of the respective counties in his region. And that is why we are seeing what we are seeing. I don't think, in terms of criticizing the Ruto government, I don't think there is much that is going to change there. And the fact that we're having this discussion here, you will see the next move Raila is going to pull is one of saying what he's extremely unhappy about as far as this government is concerned, so that we are back to where it all started, and he asserts himself as an opposition leader, quote unquote. He might even refuse to accept anything that is given to him. You know, you'll see all those things. But I think what is important to me is that Kenyans are setting the stage and the terms on how to engage when it comes to the opposition and the executive at the national level.
All right. Yeah. Harman, Raila Odinga has refused to accept that he lost the last election. He maintains that it was stolen. He did pledge to his supporters that he would provide a way forward this month. So when I read the Daily Nation, my question is this, because if you flip over to that, what page was it? Yes, page 4 to 5. The Daily Nation paints it as a strategy, you know, on Raila Odinga's side, that actually they say Raila rallied leaders in Nyanza to embrace the president. In your expert analysis, would the leadership of Nyanza have rolled out the red carpet regardless of Raila's position on the matter? What do you think?
It's very difficult. People have called me, written to me, you know, text me, and many people are fairly disappointed. A friend of mine from London said the images coming from Nyanza are disturbing. Seeing grown-up men almost kneeling before another man. It's more than the red carpet. It is actually unbelievable.
Is it unbelievable just because it is William Ruto? Because there are those who would argue that the what of Raila Odinga? Followers of Raila Odinga are almost, you know, it's almost like a religion.
Yes.
Yeah. So are you saying it? I mean, what is shocking? Is it the fact that it is William Ruto and not Raila Odinga, or just the fact that they are kneeling?
The fact that opposition chiefs in that area are kneeling before the president are not just relating in. I mean, so everybody was surprised.
So the issue is William Ruto.
Yes, because okay. I mean, you wouldn't believe that people like Orengo can actually roll out the red carpet the way you put it. For a man they believe didn't win the election, again, the way you have said it. They have had very strong words about the election. Orengo is a lawyer of no mean repute, and he has not minced his word that this election was stolen, and that the Supreme Court didn't deliver a just judgment. Then all of a sudden, boom, they turn. That is rather surprising. So if you ask me, my take is simple. I rarely do things black and white, but I must be allowed this time. It's either that these people are playing games and tricks with the president. In other words, we make you think we are good so that next time we attack, you are either defenseless, unprepared, or that even the international community and right-thinking Kenyans can say, well, these people are not bad people. They are not saying this because they hate the president. They are saying this because it is good to say so, that the country is not going in the right direction, okay? Because they have prepared the ground. But the other possibility is that these guys have been compromised. Because you cannot move from a position of such a great opposition as to state categorically that this election was stolen, that I am the one who won this election. You can't state that categorically. And then you move the next day to embrace the same guy who says stole your victory. What do you want your followers to believe? What do you want your followers to believe? And therefore, sometimes I advise politicians. Raila went into partnership with Moi, NDP, those years there. And you could see it was a strategic move. In fact, that is why he got as high as he got into politics. In 2007, he went into the handshake with the Kibaki because the country was burning. And the country, as we know it, was going to disappear. So that is understandable. In 2017, again, the country was all torn into two. You could see clearly as a statesman, there was a great reason for him to shake hands with Uhuru. Those who think the handshake is nothing, I look at them and wonder, even if they are leaders today, which country would they be leading today if that handshake didn't take place? So they should appreciate that handshake. And you can understand and appreciate. People were so mad. People were so annoyed that Raila went into that handshake. But there was justification. However, should he do one now, directly or indirectly, I can advise Raila Odinga. He will end his political career extremely badly. He'll come out so bad. He should know what people thought in 2018, on that day, 9th of March, when he took the handshake. His followers were so disappointed. It's a mark of his political genius that he was able to bring them back into this election to vote for him. Should he try another thing, my friend, he'll be very disappointed. That's my own thinking.
All right. I think that Charles is really paying attention. But Dr. Mbutu, yes. Just give me a second to find a way to phrase my question to you. Is this a sign that Raila Odinga's grip on Nyanza was knocked loose by this? This was his 5th stab at the presidency. He's failing at this 5th stab. Did it lead to his followers, some of his strongest stalwarts, to now question? Are they disillusioned in Raila Odinga's ability to lead this country?
You know, talking about Raila Odinga, I really need to think so hard because, you know, there is so much about Raila Odinga which puzzles everybody, both political friend and political foe.
So you're saying he's an enigma?
He's an enigma in his own right. And that one, it is not in doubt. All of us agree he's an enigma. So, the question of President William Ruto going to Nyanza and dishing out development projects and other goodies is should be commendable, because when somebody assumes the presidency, he is no longer a party leader, he is no longer any other politician. Instead, he is the head of state and therefore a symbol of national unity. So that means every Kenyan whom he leads deserves to benefit from development projects, irrespective of any region that citizen comes from. So the president is right. On the question of the effect it has on Raila Odinga's political career, first of all, we should commend Raila Odinga for allowing his troops, because I want to believe they had his blessings, in embracing the president. The only issue in contention here is the extent of the blessings. Was it just limited to development matters, or it was wholesome, blessing? So, Raila Odinga should be commended for allowing his troops to embrace the president. You know, now that is a show of statesmanship. However much I have an issue with the sitting head of state over the August elections, but we have a country to keep. And therefore, in order for my backyard not to be left behind in matters development, let us cooperate in matters development. Then the rest, political issues, we shall address them later on. But on the other side, we can look at this visit in terms of a long-term basis. Perhaps the president is trying to lay ground, for 2027. You see, I've been your friend. Mulinipea, is it?
He said, mulinipatia kura kidogo lakini nashukuru. I think that's what he said.
Nashukuru. Then he mentioned something. Is it Oyeyo? Arat. In fact, it was Senator Moses Kajwang who said that the votes you got, it was in some a rabbit. But the president added it was not a rabbit, it was a rat. Perhaps maybe it's a strategy by the president. Next time, he doubles up these votes from a rat to a rabbit or a giraffe in future. But for Raila Odinga, he wants to ensure Nyanza develops using the reverse gear. It's a new style of politics. Maybe we need to do a research on it. But that's what he did with Moi. He did with Kibaki after they fell out. He did with Uhuru during the handshake. So Nyanza generally has realized a lot of development projects as a result of cooperation with the sitting government. So maybe it's a continuation of the script we are used to. Yes, we have political differences, but on matters development, let us cooperate and the country moves. But there is something which Governor James Orengo said, challenging the president to have a sit down with Raila Odinga.
Yes.
To me, that is where the rubber met the road. And as Professor Aman Manyora said, it is baffling. Somebody of James Orengo's caliber saying that. Now, what could have prompted him to do that? Is it Raila Odinga who asked him to say so? Or is it the recent visit which Raila Odinga made to the UK embassy and had some talks with the UK High Commissioner to Kenya? There is a lot of things which we are not being told. But in the fullness of time, in the fullness of time, we shall get to know the truth. And Raila Odinga promised the country in the new year he is going to issue a statement and I will give direction. So perhaps that's what we should have a keen eye on. That what is that direct? Is it the handshake? Is it Mandam?
He said sit down with him in the spirit of brotherhood, not the handshake, but is there a distinction? But Charles, I'm coming to you. I just sought a clarification from you, Harman, because you say this was a 360. They rolled out the red carpet. They knelt, as you put it, for William Ruto. Is it that, so what did you expect them to do? Did you expect them to snob the president?
Not necessarily. The president is the head of state and deserves recognition and respect. You cannot, it doesn't add value. But you don't need to be a communication expert to know this is not just respect for the president. This is not just reception for the president. This was something out of the way. This was basically kneeling before the president. And I want us, as a country, moving forward, because it's really extremely necessary, to get out of this thinking that the president can give development. There is nothing the president can give anybody. The Constitution gives the president only one power only in one way, one area, the power of mercy, to do with the people who are being accused or have been sentenced, including if you have been sentenced to death. The president can commute the sentence, can set you free. That's the only time you can beg the president for anything. You can go through the Constitution. There is nowhere the president has power to give anything to anybody. So this idea of educated men and women, seasoned politicians, bending backwards, breaking their back to look for development from them. We must desist from that, because it means only court poets can get development. If your mouth can't run like those ones run in Nyanza, then your area won't get development. If you are a stammerer in Turkana there, it means you won't get development. We must move away. And Kibaki, I have a lot of things about Kibaki that I don't like. But he got us from that thinking, that the president had anything to give anybody. How we are going back there, I just can't understand. Right. And the people taking us back are people, seasoned politicians, educated men and women. I can't believe it. We should not encourage the president to imagine there's anything he can give anybody. The president is not even a village. They are making the president look like a village chief. They soon give him a fly whisk, move around. No, the president has to attend to serious matters of state, in State House and Harambee House, and only occasionally visit the country. But if he's going to visit every village so that he can give development, then you are turning the president into a village chief.
All right.
The constitution is very clear. The president is a powerful man, head of state, head of government. He should be allowed to run his government without being made to think there's anything he can give anybody. It doesn't have.
Charles,
so Nyanza people cannot convince me they are doing anything to get development.
Charles, is Herman Manyora living in a utopia? Because Raila Odinga has repeatedly stated, you know, when there are all these defections, and he said you can cooperate with government without being in government.
Yes. I think my brother here is talking about an ideal country, an ideal Kenya, which this is completely not an ideal country. And I think, number one, like my brother has said here, the president is a symbol of national unity. And I think there is completely nothing wrong with him visiting any part of this country to entrench that aspect of people living together, cohesion, integration, and matches we are politically not aligned. And being received by the leadership of the region is very telling to the average Kenyan. That is how they appreciate the need now to, that's how they see it. Kenyans will see cooperation and cohesion in terms of the leadership that they elected. How are you relating with that person that you antagonized, you were antagonizing a few months ago? And if you're okay with one another, then we move in that general direction. If you show aggression towards that particular person, then you're telling us, let us show this guy aggression. But I don't even think these leaders got there because they wanted to get there. And I think that's maybe that's something that people are missing. Kenyans are tired. Kenyans are tired of these politicians that 1 minute they are here, the next minute they are working on coalitions, the next minute they are working on handshakes, the next minute they are doing this, the other one. I think Kenyans have realized it's just politics. So when someone wins, much as they were supporting you, much as they voted for you, they queued, waited for a very long time and voted for you, they're accepting the results very quickly, as opposed to the past. This is not 10 years ago, when people would go to the streets, do all manner of things. A lot of activities have happened, of course, to get us here. But basically, even Kenyans, especially post-COVID, they have started seeing things differently, if you ask me. And that's why some politicians, in order not to have their underbellies exposed, must work with the thinking of the average Kenyans today, the average Kenyan today. So how do you do it? It is possible and very likely that if President Ruto went to Nyanza, even without the governors trooping to the meetings, he would have packed the place. He would have received a lot of accolades from the other so-called politicians for the region that are seen to be opposed to the position adopted by the Prime Minister, the ones that are not very close to the Prime Minister. What happened? They did not take the front seat, as it were. Nobody is talking about them. Today we are here. Are we talking about the former governor of Nairobi? Are we talking about the cabinet, the CS currently, Eliud Owalo? We are talking about Orengo. We are talking about Raila. We are talking about the leadership that we have traditionally known as a traditional leadership of Nyanza, of course, with Raila Odinga being the chief. So I think, to me, the fear of your underbelly being exposed is also real. And the best way to do that is to just appear. That's how you also disarm that other person, number one. Number two, it is true that the Constitution does not allow that to happen. But the truth is, the Constitution in Article 202 gives the national executive powers to give counties money, yeah, through conditional and non-conditional grants. If you're in good terms with the president, trust me, something positive is going to happen. And we have seen, presidents just walking in and saying there's going to be this, the other one. It could sound like a roadside declaration. Yes, it is a roadside declaration. Do we want to be there in the next 10 years? Maybe not. But bottom line is, currently, as we speak, it counts for a lot on matters of development, how the relationship between you and the CEO of the country. Now, you have seen how governors cry every single day that the allocation they have received from the national kitty is not sufficient to do much. Yeah, it is the truth. Most of them cannot get own sourced revenue. There is no money whatsoever, and of course the little that is there, they are those nasty ones that pocket everything and still want development somehow. But bottom line, they don't have what it takes to ensure they have a serious impact on their people. So I think it is not idle that those guys stand up the way they did. But like I said, for him to reassert himself as the person, he will definitely do some move. He'll pull a move here and there. And to me, that's how it works. You look like you're going this direction, then you turn this other direction, then life goes on. I agree with my brother. It could be bigger. It could be a long story. Remember, out of nowhere, and something that surprised everyone, the deputy president came up with this position that we need to create the position of official position and provide it in law and in the constitution, entrench it. And I don't know whether it was going to be retrospective to the extent that it was going to also affect the elections that we had, meaning Raila would occupy that position and get the troopings that go with it. But it cannot be idle that was a proposal. What does it mean? Because it doesn't matter what happens for the next 3 or 4 years, Raila is in the opposition. Yeah. So I think to me a lot could be going on. We could be maybe we are getting prepared for all these changes that are going to be there. But to me, the decisions for them to turn up was a good decision.
Okay.
Even for Raila himself, because now we are even discussing him. Discussing him, whether we'll agree or not agree, is a good thing. We are having a discussion around him. If Ruto had gone there without Raila, was received very, very well, I think this discussion would be different. We will be saying, Kumbe, this gentleman can walk into Nyanza, get received the way he was received, and without Raila's, nod. So, and
that leads me up actually to my next question,
yes.
Herman. Is this proof that, because you talked about exposed underbellies, did Raila Odinga expose his underbelly in this last election? And therefore, is his influence in Nyanza, among the Nyanza leadership, waning? Because we've had things of Nyanza B. You know, we've seen people go to, meet with the president from Nyanza. Previously, people were afraid you go against Raila, you're finished. We have Eliud Owalo as a CS. We saw the DP Rigathi Gachagua say we've even given the PS. Now this is the deep. We have given you the deep state. You know, the PS now who is serving in the Interior Ministry. Is it proof that Raila Odinga's clutches, some might put it, in Nyanza are loosening? His grip on Nyanza is loosening.
You know, everything has an end. Things that have life have a beginning and an end. Leaders come and go. So Raila could have been a leader and he can go. But until that time comes, Raila is the undisputed leader of the Luo people, just as he's a leader to many other Kenyans outside Luo land. To try and wish him away merely because he didn't become the president is to be naive, is to refuse to benefit from history. That Raila, like he says, is a master of reinvention. Just when you think he's down, he reinvents himself. That's why the enigma is. I don't think that time is now, when some small politician from Nyanza can claim to take over from Raila. I don't think that the time is not now. And I don't think that is anything that bothers Raila, that he could be challenged. People are saying he did that in order to reorganize his kingship in Nyanza. I don't think that ever crosses his mind that anybody could ever challenge him in Nyanza. This is a man who you can't challenge in Nyanza and many other places in this country. So that's why I said it could be strategic. Okay? It could be strategic in the sense you want to take a certain direction in the Kenyan politics, but you're preparing the ground, both locally and international, so that nobody sees you as some sort of primitive person. You know, many people are hoping that when Ruto goes to Nyanza, all sort of things will happen. You know, even it can be stoned. So they prepare the country and the international community so that when they engage the way they might want to engage, then it is not attributed to any of those things, a bitter loser and something like that. That this is very constructive engagement. We want to change this country. But I've also said it's possible. Politicians are No, they are just what they are. They are prostitutes. They have a price. Any of these guys would have been bought. I mean, it's possible. Because it really just can't be anything else. It can be either they've been compromised or this is a strategy they're employing. It can't be anything in between there. Because not the way it played out. Not with Raila seeming to give it his backing. There must be something that, to me, doesn't make sense, doesn't add up somewhere. And I'm refusing to see anything in between. Either they have been compromised,
black or white.
Either they have been compromised, the whole lot of them, including Raila perhaps, or this is a strategy. In between, I'm not buying anything.
All right. Dr. Mbutu, is it that Ruto is the enigma? That Raila ameshindwa atadil na yeye aje? And I ask this because perhaps even the economic situation in which the country finds itself has conspired to alter the mood of the country, that Kenyans are not willing to put up with any further agitation. Because Raila had called for maandamano, then he called off maandamano after the Supreme Court verdict. He had called for maandamano when the 4 IEBC commissioners were facing a committee in the National Assembly for their removal. Is it that Raila is not quite sure how to deal with the person that is William Ruto?
Okay, so the first thing, whether William Ruto, His Excellency, is an enigma in politics, and whether Raila Odinga is losing grip in his backyard. So, number one, it's true, William Ruto, His Excellency, is an enigma in politics. Rising to where he is today is not a mean achievement. The man has worked so hard and he has surmounted so many challenges, and therefore he is an enigma in his own right. On the other hand, Raila Odinga, the Right Honorable, is also a politician who has got 9 lives, in politics. And as Professor Herman said, he is good at reinventing himself. And therefore, anybody thinking that he is losing grip in his backyard, not just in Luo Nyanza, but countrywide, he is mistaken. Because this support which he enjoys is more of organic rather than induced. Organic in the sense that, for instance, in Luo Nyanza, that support he has, it stemmed from his late father, the late Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, who was an enigma in Kenya's politics. The networks he has created over the years is something which nobody can undo them in a single day. So, Raila Odinga is here to influence Kenyan politics for some time, unless he decides to groom somebody and say, okay, I've done my part, allow this gentleman or this gentlewoman to take it up from me. That's when now we can see mutations, so we can see some paradigm shift in the Kenyan politics.
Okay. We need to take a break, but when we come back, Charles, my question is this. My former colleague Kennedy Muriithi did a special report on why Raila lost.
Yes.
And in that report, we had Saitabao Olekanchori say that the likes, if Junet would tell Baba that it is, you can tell Baba it is day, but if Junet tells Baba it is night, Baba will agree with Junet it is night. Did Raila Odinga alienate his lieutenants, who perhaps would have cancelled him in this last presidential election? Did he push them away? And are they now reconsidering, or rather considering their options moving forward? All right, on the other side of this break.
My name is Norman Mudipo, former NTV business anchor and also a reporter, currently a communications consultant with App Exporter Novelli. I was among the few who were privileged to attend the Man Cave, which was sponsored and led by Nation Media Group. I think for me, it was the first ever, the real first ever men's conference. And I know there's been all this talk around men not talking. But I think for me, that needs to change because men talked. Maybe not everyone, but men talk. And I just want to encourage men to talk because that's how you're going to cope with the stresses, with the challenges of life. The same way like the women do. So I think for me it was an eye-opener, it was a watershed moment, and looking forward to more conversations, more sharing of experiences in February 2023.
This is the baobab seed powder, a product of the baobab fruit, a source rich in vitamins and a popular native snack across sub-Saharan Africa. I'm here at the Kenyan coast where a foreign international has been on the spotlight for accusations of biopiracy relating to the harvesting for export of baobab trees. I'm here to find out what is at stake.
Brazilian butt lift, Blowtox, Newtox, Fox eye lift. Images flooding social media from people who have gone under the surgical knife to change their physical appearance.
Tazama Kiu kwenye Rembo TV.
Nenda wapi? Leave me alone!
Recharge and get upgraded.
Star Times. Enjoy digital life.
Welcome to the Ultimate Crew. This is a show that's going to test the contestants with endurance, with strength, with patience, and of course it's all about teamwork. Sorry, monkey band. You cannot finish alone, you have to finish as a team.
Are you ready to be crowned the Ultimate Crew?
Welcome back to AM Live, and we're discussing the subject of has Nyanza made peace with the Ruto presidency. Before we took the break, we had from Dr. Mbutu on the subject, and I'm hearing from Haman and Daktari that you cannot underestimate Raila Odinga. But Charles, the question I asked just prior to the break was, has Raila Odinga effectively alienated his lieutenants?
I think there are two levels to this, if you ask me. Number one, Raila's style of leadership is about gatekeepers. He will look for Kalonzo, look for Mudavadi, look for the other person from this region, Martha Karua from Mount Kenya region, then do his calculations and work around how now the numbers can add up. And I think now over and above that, there are the Junettes of this world that seem to be very close to him. And unfortunately, they seem to also not help a lot when it comes now to the actual implementation of some of those decisions that are made. Like you remember that interview that you're talking about, there was a lot of noise from insiders about their operations and how they were going about it and how they were advising, misadvising, depending on where you're standing, Raila Odinga, and the decisions that were arrived at that were not, some people, as other insiders, were not very comfortable with. So I think these are things that Raila needs to look at and must be looking at and wondering, now that we are here, how do we go about this thing? I don't think Junet will go He will be there. He's an important integral part of the Raila network. What will happen, like I think my brother Manyora has said, is that Raila is going to reorganize. Raila is going to look at how to go about this. And I think they should study how Ruto won. Ruto looked at how Raila has always been operating and came up with something completely different. Completely different. And that's why I believe he would have received a rousing welcome, a hero's welcome in Nyanza, whether or not he had the nod from Raila Odinga. Hustler cuts across. It's not even easy to define. I am sure there are a lot of Nyanza ladies and gentlemen that feel like we are hustlers. You might not use that word publicly, but they feel the same. They feel the things that are being said are about us. And that is not about tribal arithmetics anymore. And that is how Ruto managed to come up with a network that did not rely on individuals to deliver, on gatekeepers to deliver. It was about people feeling at a very personal level that this gentleman represents our aspirations, and he has something called bottoms up that is going to be the solution to all our problems. And they voted for him, to the man. Even where you least expected him to get votes, he got votes. So I think, to me, what Raila could be looking at is how he must also reorganize himself against the backdrop of the Kalonzo Musyokas of this country that are no longer comfortable, that even came into Azimio, remember, almost belatedly, that the discussions back and forth, that meeting to agree on this, the other one, could have taken too long and costed the team quite a bit of in terms of the time to campaign, time to show cohesion, time to bring their networks into play. So that is again something he must be looking at. How do you go about now getting votes in Ukambani, for example, without necessarily having to rely on Kalonzo Musyoka like I have traditionally done? How do I get into the so-called Mombasa County, as we spoke about here, against the backdrop of, again, a deputy party leader who is a bit quiet, if you ask me, how to get into the other places, and especially when the incumbent is the one you're running against. In 2027, it's going to be slightly different because the president currently is also setting up his networks in all these places, and he has shown something that the Jubilee government failed miserably to do. He has shown that as long as you're working with him, you're loyal to him, you have worked with him, you've worked to deliver, he rewards you. It doesn't matter what the general public thinks about you. He will clean you up, and if need be, and put you in a position of power. And that is telling. The average politician out there is looking at that and going like, oh, I think if I work with this one, there's a possibility that I will not be let down. There's a possibility he will deliver on what he promises to deliver in as far as I'm concerned. That gains him a lot of support from even individuals who would have shied away from supporting him. So I think this reorganization, it cannot be business as usual. It cannot be the Junet that we know acting as if he's representing Raila. I have a feeling it will be different. It will be slightly different. He'll come up with different teams. He'll come up with a different strategy. I am assuming, I am believing. And so it is not complete annihilation for them or removal from this, completely from Raila's network, but they might tone down.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Herman, have I skipped you, Dr. Mbutu? Oh.
Don't know.
Oh.
But I can go before Herman.
But I'm coming in your direction. Herman, is Raila's style of politics outdated? And I ask this because he managed to rally people, as Charles said, around this hustler narrative. Whether or not it will actually amount to anything is another matter entirely. But, and William Ruto says this again and again himself, he managed to remove us from tribal politics. And then you'll see, I was hosting a panelist the other day. She attempted to run for political office, secure an ODM ticket. And she said, if you don't have a patron or money, the chances of you securing that ticket are very slim. slim to none, she said. And she said, you will never see what you see with Kenya Kwanza, which is, and this is her view, not mine, young people being given an opportunity. She was saying you will not see in ODM the likes of Toto getting a party ticket like that. So is his style of politics outdated? Another gentleman I hosted here, a young man, and he said when it came to the Yala appointment, Raila gave his daughter, Kalonzo gave the son. Is that style of politics? Have Kenyans come to the point where this generation does not know about the fight for liberation? Does he need to update himself?
I think you have said so many things, I don't know which one you see,
it all comes back to that one question. Is his style of politics outdated?
You see, the things you are saying are things that are common to all political parties.
Mm-hmm.
Games played during nominations, accusations of people receiving money to give certificates. This cuts across political parties. Toto, but there's a Babu Namwamba. People are missing. These are all these young people in ODM. There's a guy in, I don't know, there are many young people who have won on ODM tickets. How old is Babu Namwamba now? Is he an old man? Babu Namwamba. Now, as you speak. Just to remind you, he was elected on an ODM ticket, 2007. Then you can imagine, if he's not an old man now, and he's elected in 2007 on an ODM ticket, if anything, it is ODM that has been the most progressive party since independence in terms of the sort of people that have contested on the ODM ticket and won. So that is not true. In terms of style of leadership, it is true William Ruto infused into our politics something new that paid dividends, you know, in terms of rallying people around the idea of the hustler thing. And it quite worked for him. And it almost, contrary to what people like us thought, it almost ignored tribe. Almost. It didn't quite. But it almost died. And that's quite a credit on William Ruto in terms of how smart and he can be. But you see, if you want to understand whether Raila lost the election because he listened to Junaid Mohammed and nobody else and alienated others like you are saying, you have to go back to Moi and everybody else, how they have run their elections in this country. You see? Let me tell you this. In a closely fought election, the focus of the losing side after the election is always on how we lost this election. And most certainly, it always zeroes down to Joho. I mean, Joho is not Joho. I mean, to personalities. Come and see who you would not have lost. It's not Junaid Mohammed. And the question of how you run your campaign, the style, it's not just Kenyan. Hillary Clinton, not Hillary, the husband, Bill Clinton, when he first, he had to dismantle his entire campaign team when he realized things were not working. So it's not just Raila. What I know about Kenyan politicians, as a person, I've interacted with them. They rarely seek and take advice. Moi was solo, but he was able always to survive as a solo politician because he inherited serious, powerful state machinery, you know, and the infrastructure of KANU. Kibaki was a corporate candidate. You know, people wanted to get out of KANU and people were working on him. It's not even him. When Uhuru came, it was not Uhuru who was campaigning. It was a machinery. A machinery that worked for Uhuru to be president and to maintain power. Now, that leaves you with Ruto and Raila. These are people who run the show themselves. You can sit with them. You remember people said a night, more than one night, the night of long knives, when they were trying to choose the deputy president to running mate to Ruto. He ignored what everybody told him in the room. They would go to opinion poll, the whole of Central, Kiduke Kindiri. They tried the whole country, Kiduke Kindiri. Everybody in the room, but he ignored them. That is a Kenyan politics. These people don't listen to anybody. So you don't say it's Raila listening to Junaid. He doesn't even listen to Junaid. I doubt he listens to him. They do things solo. And it works for them if it works. It worked for Ruto. It didn't work for Raila. One may suggest going forward, the best way is to institutionalize your campaign. Let the campaign be a system, an institution, where it is not one person who makes decisions. And if that had been the case with the Raila campaign, certainly, whatever games were played from whatever quarters, those games would not have been enough to stop him from becoming president. You get it? Yeah.
And then I'll ask you to explain what institutionalizing a campaign translates to. Yeah. But first, Dr. Mbutu, it's said that in politics, there are heroes and villains. The players depict others as either heroes or villains. So I am here, your savior. I am coming to save you from whatever dire straits this villain has landed you in. Raila Odinga has, in the last few weeks, made stinging criticism of Wafula Chabukati, the chairperson of the IEBC. Now that Chabukati, as of tomorrow, will be out of the picture, where does that leave Raila Odinga?
Okay, before that...
Because, I mean, an option would have been maybe agitating Mandamano for change of leadership at IEBC. That, I mean, there's no need for that now.
Okay, before I come to that, I really want to say something about how Azimio lost. That story of how Azimio lost is a very big issue which will impact so much in the history of this country. And until people like Francis Atwoli come out to give their side of the story, Martha Karua, Kibicho, Uhuru Kenyatta, we shall never know the exact truth on why they lost. But I want to agree with Prof. A good campaign is that which is institutionalized, so that we avoid these problems of an individual did, the other one did not do, that is why we lost. We cheapen the whole thing. Now, coming back to Chabukati, first and foremost, there is no way this country could afford to go to another election with the current IEBC as it is. Whether his term was coming to an end or not, there is no way another election could happen with this IEBC, because their image is too tainted, Olive, to an extent where almost a half of the country do not believe them. So, the effect his moving out of that position has on Raila Odinga is that, one, it offers an opportunity to Honorable Raila Odinga to correct the messes which he perceives surrounds the IEBC Commission. If it's the manner in which commissioners are being picked, now he has that chance. If he feels the way the Constitution provides on how these vacant positions will be filled is not right, then he has that opportunity to come out and tell the country, this is what I think. And he has the opportunity now to bring in the civil society and all the players, including Parliament, Senate, on how best we can constitute a new IEBC which is impartial. And that brings me back to the issue of cooperation which James Orengo was talking about. Perhaps this is one thing which can either make Ruto to embrace Raila, or it can make them to part ways completely. Because Raila Odinga is on record saying there is no way one player in the game will be allowed to choose the referee. All the players have to be given a chance. And on the other side, the president and the Kenya Kwanza Brigade feels the Constitution is very clear on how new commissioners will be appointed. But my view is, since we have a country to protect and we have to ensure its continuity and survival, maybe the IPPG deal of 1997 is the most safest route for us all. Because I want to tell you, Olive, and I will want my brother Charles to excuse me. Sometimes in this country we believe every problem we have can be sorted out legally. This issue of IEBC has never been a legal problem. Instead, it has always been a political problem. And therefore, political problems are usually sorted out politically. Legal problems are sorted out legally. So, the best way out of this impasse is political. The two bulls, the His Excellency the President and the Azimio chief, they need to sit down and put their heads together. Otherwise, we are in for things which none of us want to imagine. Yeah. Because IEBC has always been a contentious issue. Ever since the days of the late Samuel Kivuitu, all the way to Isaac Hassan, now to Chabukati, we are still talking about the same issue. How to make it impartial.
All right, Charles, what's your response?
I think we focus too much on the membership of the commission and want them to be impartial just by sitting in that office and acting impartial. I think history should have taught us that that's not the way to work. And I can tell my brother there will not come a time when the president and Raila will sit down to discuss how to populate the IEBC commission. As we speak right now, there's an amendment to the IEBC Act for purposes of the selection panel, amending the selection panel so that instead of 4 members coming from the Parliamentary Service Commission, we have a member from the liaison political parties liaison team and one from the Public Service Commission.
Correct.
And I think public hearings are going on that. It is strange, Olive, that the law is very clear. 6 months to tomorrow, the days you're talking about, the president, the former president, had an opportunity to come up with a selection panel to give us the chair and 2 commissioners. 6 months ago. I mean, 6 months to the time they are supposed to retire, because we knew their retirement date was clear. It was there.
That is, yeah.
Raila was part of that team. So this talk of wanting to get rid of Chabukati, I think it doesn't add up for me. Why didn't it happen? Why didn't they have a conversation around that? And they had an opportunity to replace it. He was not going to go. He was going to remain the chair, but they would have replaced, they would have gotten the chair by now. The chair would have been there, waiting to just take up, because that's what the law says. Now, what is going to happen is that the president is going to declare those positions vacant. And
he has already declared them.
The upcoming ones. So, and the ones that are leaving.
Okay.
So I want to believe the LSK and the Parliamentary Service Commission will now provide, they are supposed to provide names actually, and we'll have a selection panel. We are going to have an IEBC team. We don't even know who is going to be that team. What I know is, we as Kenyans, we need to move away from the individuals. We have realized that technology and how elections are conducted can solve a lot of our problems. It is strange that we live in a country, I don't know the last time we went to, you used Thika Road up to TRM. You will pass De La Rue, where we print money, but I don't think you turn to your right to confirm whether there are notes that are flying from De La Rue so that you can collect a few. That's where we make our money, the legal tender that we use in this country. Yet we have to look for all manner of places to print our ballots. We have to move all over the world and have funny, crazy transactions that are extremely expensive to make our ballots, because somehow we can trust ourselves to make our money locally, but we cannot trust ourselves with making of the ballots. We talk about agents during elections, yet IEBC is supposed to conduct elections in such a way that even if you don't have an agent, you're supposed to feel safe that your votes were protected. We are a country that spends billions of shillings trying to talk to people to vote. Yet, if you look at the people who are registered in mobile service platforms, there are millions and millions. In fact, maybe double the number of people that that go out and register and vote. Young men don't even wake up in the morning to go and vote. They're just stuck at home. We are a country that has refused to adopt, to move with technology because of the fear that has been created in ourselves. And we believe, trust me, if you ask the average person, they'll tell you that technology is such that kitaibiwa na technology ndio mwizi. You remember even when the court matters were being heard in court, a lot of things were being said, flying left, right, and center.
The other day, Kalonzo Musyoka told my colleague Zainab Ismail that we need to move fully manual.
You see now, what are we talking about? In other, how do you know, this has become a cash cow. The IEBC we know is about, how can we go full manual, honestly? Yet, just the other day, when we were conducting a collection of signatures for BBI, his signatures were accepted by IEBC and they were used. People were signing on their phones. And it was okay for that to happen. And that was a constitutional process. Amending the constitution through that process required that you have so many signatures. E-signatures were adopted by IEBC, but you cannot vote from home, seriously? I think we are refusing to move in that direction because of whatever reason, because of the discussion we are having here, that people should sit down and make a determination on who populates IEBC. Supposing my brother Herman wants to be the president, do they call him also so that he can also sit in the panel, in the discussion table to decide who becomes? Why are we so obsessed with wanting to control the commissioners? Yeah, because I think that's a problem. As a country, we need to move away from that, like Manyora advised on us moving away from this issue of the president bringing development. We need to ask ourselves, what is this that we don't do right with deployment of technology? Incidentally, IEBC's one of the functions is about the right technology and how to deploy it. The courts have always guided on some of these matters, but I think we need to up it. We need to go another level and ask ourselves. We are still timing on the same position as a country. We have a lot of people who are not voting out there, yet they're on a platform called M-Pesa, where we transact billions of money every day, and even if your shilling disappears towards the other direction, number one, we will know. We will know that that shilling did not go to the right person. So we can either reverse it, and even if we lose it, we'll have known it did not go to the right person. This country invented that. Yet we cannot come up with a product that gives us proper elections, cost-effective elections. I think the issue should not be the human personnel in terms of the commissioners. We need to now start thinking seriously early enough. Even the laws that we are using. What laws are we using around elections? I think those are the issues that we need to discuss seriously as a country. The president should lead that. Raila Odinga should lead that. He should move away from the individuals that ultimately become the commissioners, because trust me, there are 7. As long as we live on earth, even if it's split between 2 people, you don't have a half commissioner. So it will be 4-3 at any one time. And to the general public, 3 will be good, 4 will be bad. Okay. 2 will be good, the other 4. So that talk must end. We need to be discussing technology even in court. That how did technology serve us, as opposed to how did the commissioners behave. Remember, if these commissioners, the 4, the Cherelas, had an issue with the elections publicly, and they did not accept the results and announce them as they came, the discussion that they were not happy with the chairman taking over IEBC in terms of tallying, which is their function, it would have worked in court. But the question the court asked itself was, you are there telling us every time this is the result and announcing them yourselves and saying you have tallied until the last minute. So on that particular basis, that issue disappeared. So I think, to me, we need to talk technology, as opposed to the personnel. We will never be happy with the people we put in place. Trust me, it will never happen.
Herman, did we just scrap off that independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission so that it is just the Electoral and Boundaries Commission? And the reason I ask that is, in this election, I mean, really, we had revelations. These affidavits were bombshells. Affidavits that people had apartments. This was during the tribunal hearings, but people had apartments at the Yaya Center. We had the Secretary General, former Secretary General Jubilee telling us that he met some people in Keren, that there was leaked audio of a commissioner calling a political player to ask him, so now where do we go from here? So clearly these are not independent people. These are people who have political leanings. Just look at the 2017? IEBC that fractured. This one fractured as well. Is it time to do as Dr. Mbutu is saying? Let the two bulls come, pick their people so that it is transparent and everybody knows there's no opaqueness.
I think, Olive, this is a serious issue. But before I talk about the serious issue, let me also tell my friend that when Kalonzo talks about going manual, nobody should laugh at him. You remember in America during the last election, Trump won comfortably until votes came in from the post office. And that's when Biden... So Americans will be thinking about it. You know, the president Americans elected was Trump. And then the post office elected Biden. So these are not laughing matters. So don't believe what Kalonzo is saying. And by the way, Europe, led by none other than Europe's largest economy, Germany, is having a conversation. They want to go manual. German, not some small African country. So Kalonzo should not be dismissed like that. Now, I say this is a serious matter because elections can ban a country. Elections are very serious. And therefore, who manages the election must be of critical importance. We've been dancing around a fuel tanker with the cigarettes and matchsticks. This country can ban. And elections are not things you play on. They have brought down many countries, including those around us. In the days of coup d'etats, the main reason was either the big man didn't allow competition by way of elections or rigged outright. The days they used to take debates with votes and throw in the forests and rivers. And countries went down through coup d'etats and things of that nature. So we must not play around with elections. And for that reason, we must say, do what the Constitution says. Simple, verifiable. Now, back to the Constitution of IEBC. What he's saying again should not be dismissed. There are many ways of constituting an electoral body, including what we are using. There are about 3, 4, 5. Prominent on the ways of constituting an electoral body is what he's saying. The major players, along the lines of what happened in this country in 1997, IPPG, where political players chose the membership of the electoral body. Until Kibaki rubbished that and did a unilateral selection, which I fear this bill in Parliament could be leading us to. And you saw what happened in 2007. Now, having said that, and being one who supports that idea of political players bringing in members of the commission, I must say something. 2 things. Number one, we need to have we need to address the structural issue. Between IEBC, the commission, and IEBC, the secretariat, how do they work? Should IEBC commissioners work on a full-time basis? Should they be as many as they are, or less or more? Should they do day-to-day work, or they should leave that to the secretariat? And finally, irrespective of which method we adopt in populating the IEBC, so long as we continue selecting the weakest among us, the worst among us, it will never. If you give ODM the chance to elect the commissioners, will they bring the best they can get? Will UDA bring the best they can get on the table? Certainly no. They'll bring cronies. It will be a reward system. You talk about Kalonzo, Raila taking people to Iala. That is the problem with this country. They never see beyond certain circles. Now they are constituting government from CS, then PS, and now they are going to ambassadors and chairmen. Even the famed Ruto, he will not go beyond the same circles, same families. It is inbreeding. They never look beyond this. If they want somebody from Busia, the Moody Award family, Kisi, the Nyachai, they will always go to those same fellows and the political cronies. So that limits our ability, for example, to get the best men and women to run such a sensitive institution like IEBC. Okay? We need the best. When the last 4 were selected, I was on some TV station. I said, this is the best we can have. The host told me, please, why are you talking like that about Kenya? I said, these are good Kenyans, very good Kenyans, but they should not be commissioners. They are handling a very sensitive institution that can burn the country. And for that reason, we must have the best. So therefore, I agree with him. Let's go the IPPG way. That would be a better way. But more importantly, let whoever is charged with the responsibility of appointing or selecting know that this is a serious assignment that deserves nothing but the best from the country.
All right. In a minute each, your last words before we wind up the show. Dr. Mbutu?
Viewers, I urge all of us to continue being good Kenyans. Let us love one another. Politicians come and go. And these are people, during the day, we think they are enemies, but at night, they are cutting deals. So let us not put these things in our hearts. We should put them in the lungs. Yeah? Don't take politics like religion. No. You go about with your business, mind your own things. Don't hate your brother or sister because of his political alignments or political views. No. We should be good Kenyans, build one country, because we have no other country to call home. Kenya is our home. And it's incumbent upon each citizen to do the best he or she can to help this country stay united and move forward. Those in government, please celebrate, but also deliver what you promised. Those in the opposition, do your role constructively. If the government is doing something good, support them, commend them. If it's not doing something which is just to Kenyans, be at the forefront, to speak out, point out those mistakes. And that's how collectively we shall build this country and ensure that our future generations, they inherit something better than what we had found when we came.
All right. Charles, your last word in a minute?
I think I need to remind Kenyans that we have two levels of government. But I think we forget that. We have county governments that have functions that have money. So much as we are looking up at the national executive, we also need to be very keen on what county governors are doing. And I'm happy with the discussion the president had with the assembly, that where people are bashing one another.
Kericho.
I think that's a nonsense we need to avoid. We need a functional county government. Remember, things like health are just about 95% devolved, other than policy and maybe the national referral hospitals. Agriculture fully devolved, which is, everything about food and sustainability and all that. A lot of things are devolved functions, but there is this habit of us behaving as if county governments don't exist. We always look up at what the national government is doing. Any serious Kenyan should be keen on what the county governors and the county government generally, because that includes the county assemblies as well. What are they doing to resolve those issues that are devolved to them, because those are constitutional? And the functions have the money with them. So can we have a discussion around what are they doing? Are they doing what's right, much as you are waiting for the national government to serve you? I think if people refocus their attention there, and also the senators, so that they ensure things are moving at the county level, things can work. Remember, the National Assembly can initiate any law, so including laws that relate to matters counties. So we need to refocus our attention on what counties are doing, because they always get away with murder.
Okay. Haman, your last word?
Yeah, I want to advise Kenyans to not to travel the route of hero worship, assuming the president will give you goodies he doesn't have. The danger in this is not just that we shall turn the president into some village chief, but the bigger danger is if all leaders troop to one side, they are eating together, like he's saying. At a time, the Mwananchi is suffering the way he's suffering, and this suffering is going to get worse. You get it? And then they see their leaders have gone one side. The people will take things in their own hands, which is dangerous to the country. Because we have elected institutions, we have put institutions in place, including parliament and these politicians, to prosecute for the people when the government is not doing the right thing. And to impeach that government, in other words, to sanction that government when it is not going the right direction. But when leaders abdicate that responsibility, and abandon their institutions and they kneel before the presidency, the people will prosecute the issues, and street impeachment has never helped any country. But that's where we are driving the country. Because people now see everything is hopeless. There's nobody to speak for them. And they can't eat. They can't take children to school. Loved ones are dying when they are watching. And the leaders are all trooping to the president and singing choirs and praising him and kneeling for development. The people will take the thing into their own hands. And that has never been good, wherever it has happened. It never brings any good when people spill into the streets to impeach the government. Nobody gains. In fact, we all lose. So our leaders must engage with the president constructively. They must point out problems when the government is doing wrong. I'm yet to hear a leader who is saying, for example, this CDF thing is unconstitutional. Why would the president using his AG go against what the Supreme Court has said? That is unconstitutional. They're all quiet. And that explains why the president has a way of making these people troop to him. And I'm saying it is short term. But in the long term, it can be dangerous to the country. Because the people feel they are now naked. They have nobody to speak for them. And they'll do things. They're not going to die as we eat. We big people in some corner. They will come out. And that is not good for any country.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much, gentlemen. That's a lot to think about from all three of you. Charles Munyui, who is a governance consultant, Herman Manyora, political analyst. Herman, they can find your content, Nairobi Review, right?
Pardon?
Your content.
Yeah, Nairobi Review.
Nairobi Review.
Nairobi Review is a website and also my YouTube channel.
YouTube channel,
yes,
all right.
Yes.
And we also have Dr. Sam Butu, who is a lecturer. My first time to host you, so good. Lecturer, Department of Political Science and Public Administration, University of Nairobi. So remember, IEBC, the remaining commissioners release a report today before their term expires tomorrow morning on AM Live. We will be asking the question, what next for IEBC? We continue this conversation. Have a good morning.